Hi, welcome to the Beacon Hill Report. I'm your host, Walt Kosmowski. And with me is Senator Joan Lovely. Joan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Walt. Pleasure to be here.
Well, glad to have you. And before we start our conversation with Senator Lovely, I want to remind our viewers that this will be the first of a number of shows that we will do with the Senator, where she will have the opportunity to report back to her constituents on the various issues that face the state of Massachusetts and more specifically her second district. And Joan, again, welcome. And I think it might be appropriate to ask you, in view of the fact that you have just been elected as state senator and been on the job less than a year, if you would take us through how you got into government and how you kind of give us a synopsis of how you came to be state senator and where we are right now.
Thank you, Walt. And I want to say thank you to you and to BevCam for giving me this opportunity to present to the residents of the district today. The second Essex district, as you know, is Beverly, Danvers, Peabody, Salem, and Topsfield. And you know how I got involved in politics is by building a playground. When my children were quite small, 2, 4, and 6, the playground in our neighborhood was falling down. I went to the then mayor and city council over in Salem and said, what can we do to rebuild this playground? It was the same equipment that my husband had played on, honestly, and he would say that was when Abe Lincoln was president. So we went to the city, and we put together a neighborhood association, a playground association, and we petitioned the city, and we worked for a whole year to rebuild that playground, to identify funding, to also identify how to put the structure together. We came up with a plan, we presented it to the city, they approved it. Over the course of a weekend, 100 volunteers, and we built a new playground. And that's how I got started. After that very positive experience, I said, gee, I think I'd like to do more. I served on a commission, and then I decided to run for office. I ran for city council, where I was on the council in Salem for 15 years.
Wow.
And that, I think, really gave me a really good basic foundation, very good foundation, to be able to take that experience about local budgeting and those types of needs of communities, and take that up to the state senate.
Yeah. Well, nobody can say that Joan Lovely was born with a silver spoon in her mouth, right? You learned from being an average citizen and working the government, working the processes, and working through to solve problems. Well, that's terrific. Now, I know you're a Beverly resident originally.
Yes.
And you served on the city council in Salem. And now you have a district. It's called the Second Essex District.
Yes.
And maybe we can ask our control room to put up a map of that district. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to ask you, now you are representing 4 additional communities.
Yes.
How have you started to get to know the needs of those communities? Because you obviously are very well versed in the needs of Salem. Yeah.
And I know Beverly pretty well, again, as having grown up here and graduated right here in at Beverly High School. Last year during the campaign process, I went across all 5 communities, and I knocked on upwards. They estimated it was 8,000 doors. So I got to go into everyone's neighborhood, just about everyone's neighborhood. I knocked probably almost 100% of Beverly and Salem. Peabody is a larger 16 square miles, so I'm still continuing to knock on doors in Peabody, and I will do that again next year when I run for re-election. Danvers knocked on many doors there as well as Topsfield. I also met with community leaders, local elected officials, mayors, Mayor Scanlon here, Mayor Driscoll in Salem, Mayor Betancourt in Peabody, town manager Wayne Marquis in Danvers,
right.
Also the selectmen up in Topsfield, and asked them last year during the campaign process, what are the needs of all of your individual communities? And I got to really got to know the communities of especially Danvers, Peabody, and Topsfield better through that process. Also, what are Beverly's needs? And of course, I'm very familiar with Salem's needs. So it was a great experience, and it
so
helped.
Again, the 5 communities that you represent would be, again, Beverly, Salem, Peabody, Danvers, and Topsfield.
That's correct.
Now, how have you found so far your job as a state senator? How is that different from being a city councilor in the city of Salem?
Well, in some ways it's the same because it's the legislative end of government. So it's instead of being the administrative end, which would be the mayor or the governor, it's the legislature. So it's very similar to city council. The parliamentary rules are very similar, the way we get things done. Of course, it's on a much bigger scale. Many more issues than local issues. I now deal with issues that transcend the district, really across the Commonwealth. I've been assigned to 7 committees, and my chair, I am 7 committees. Yes, I am
right into the deep
I'm
end,
a fresh,
aren't they?
Yes, you can tell I'm a freshman.
Freshman, yeah.
That's right. But I'm co-chair of. So on the Senate side, you automatically get a chair because there's only 40 of us. Really 39 because there's a president. My chairmanship is mental health and substance abuse. Of which I will be honest with you, I don't have a formal background in, so it's been a pretty big learning curve to learn about that. And I'm Vice Chair of Veterans and Federal Affairs, and actually I'm Vice Chairman with Representative Paracella right here in Beverly.
Right, that's right.
So that's been just terrific. And then I've got 5 other committees that I also sit on. So the committee work has been busy. That's much different than at the local level, but still city councils have committee assignments as well, administration and finance, community and economic development, whatever it might be. So a lot of similarities, much bigger scale, bigger learning curve.
And how's the adjustment been so far on you? You're working a lot more hours?
Yes, I am. I'm working 7 days a week. Whether I'm in Boston, whether I'm meeting with constituents here in the district, or meetings on different projects, whatever might be going on. I'm working many more hours and enjoying every bit of it. And I just want to give a shout out to my partners in government, at the state level, the representatives, Representative Paracella again here from Beverly,
sure.
Representative Keenan from Salem, Ted Spiliotis from Danvers, and Brad Hill from Topsfield. These legislators have been there for a while. And they've been terrific. We are a real team, and I also want to give a shout out to all of our staff, because they really help us run our offices.
Well, I know that your chief aide, Mr. Gamer, and I have he's very efficient, and I really enjoyed working with him. Now, one of the first things that you did when you took office, you went through the budgeting process, the state budgeting process. Now, that's a little bit different than the budgeting process in the city of Salem. And can you describe for us how that budgeting process works sort of in a few, because it is rather a unique budgeting process.
It is a unique process, and it is different than at the local level. So the governor comes out with his budget in January. That then goes to the House and the Senate to deliberate. And it's the House and Senate are separate. So the House may be wanting to, and one thing that the legislature can do is we can add, whereas at the local level, city councils and selectmen cannot add, they can only subtract.
Interesting. Mm-hmm.
So that's a very important difference right there. So the House and Senate deliberate the budget over the course of several months in the spring. We just actually finished with our end of it at the end of May, beginning of June. That went then off to what they call a joint conference committee, where they then reconcile what the differences are between the House and the Senate, and then it goes back to the governor. That happened just 10 days ago, and if people had read in the newspaper,
that's right.
The governor did veto some of the legislatures, the House and Senate's side of things, and so I don't know when this will air, but tomorrow we will be taking up those overrides.
Right. Now, is there legally a time limit? I know in the city of Beverly there has to be a budget in place by June 30th of every year, because our fiscal year starts July 1st. Is that sort of the same in the
Yes,
state?
it is. Yes, absolutely. And because the legislature thought that we would run out of time, we actually passed a 1/12 budget about a month ago, so that we would not be out of budget, if you will.
Now, when you say 1/12 budget, what does that mean?
So a 1/12 budget is, we passed enough for 1/12, an additional
1
month, right? So that we had we passed the budget at least so that we could fund the state government
all right. So
for the month of July while we were
in case something
while we were
doesn't
finishing this up.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Now, I know one of the things that certainly BevCam follows politics here in Beverly, and of course one of the items on our income revenue side is state aid, and that has kind of gone down in the last number of years. And what is happening to state aid? Can you tell us what the cities might expect in the near-term future?
So we were actually, the legislature, through the governor as well, were able to increase state aid this year. Now, that trends with the economy. You know, we've had a soft economy for the past 3 or 4 years, so the revenues have been soft, so the local aid has also been reduced. But we're starting to see that turn around. We're able to now give more money towards local aid. And that's in the form of Chapter 70, which is for our schools, and Chapter 90, which is for our roadways. Chapter 90 actually received a very good-sized bump this year because most of the roadways, the repairs are done by cities and towns. And so that, you know, we recognize that and want to make sure that cities and towns have that money to be able to make those local repairs.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, let me ask you, just changing topics a little bit. You recently voted in favor of welfare reform. Can you tell us what that reform, what's the significance of that? What does that do?
So this was a priority of the Senate President, Therese Murray, for this year, and she spoke about that in her remarks back in January. So there's particularly 3 items that we wanted to look at for reform, one of which is photo on EBT cards. So EBT is electronic bank transfer.
Right.
And these are for really the poorest of the poor. However, there are some out there that will fraud the system. And we want to be able to make sure we can eliminate, or at least decrease that, to eliminate fraud in any way we can. So now we're going to require that there be photographs on EBT cards. There won't be a requirement for seniors, for the very elderly who would have difficulty and we believe are not frauding the system. There's also a strict work requirement. Before there wasn't any, you know, kind of impetus to try to find work. Now there will be. People are going to have to prove that they are actively seeking work. And also proof of Social Security number. Before there was not a proof of Social Security number, and that's why, you know, people were able to, you know, use, you know, dead people's Social Security numbers to be able to, again, fraud the system. So there will be absolutely proof of that. So I was very supportive, voted in favor of all 3 of those reforms in the bill.
And now, have these statutes, has this legislature taken effect now?
So it was sent over to the governor for his signature, and you know, he signed it. So yes, it's in effect, and they'll phase it in, the EBT, the photo IDs, it'll take 18 months, I believe it's 18 months to have, to fully implement that part of it. But the Social Security work requirement is immediate as well.
Okay. Now let me kind of look at the bigger picture here with you. What are some of the major projects that affect the 2nd district now? Can you tell us about some of the big issues in your district? Sure.
So right here in Beverly, Mayor Scanlon's been working very hard with the Brimble Ave interchange, and that's a very important you know, project. It'll really open up a lot of development opportunities over in that neck of the woods, over that 128 over by the music theater. Also, Mayor Scanlon has been, you know, put in for a new middle school. The city of Beverly is in need of a new middle school. The old Briscoe High School is an old entire building.
Yes.
And actually, Memorial Middle School, where I went for junior high, is now used by City Hall for City Hall offices. So
among other things.
Exactly, among other things. And so Beverly is looking at those 2 initiatives right now, 2 very important initiatives. Salem, the obvious, is the power plant. The power plant is the big nut to crack right now over there. And permitting a new power plant is very complex. And I know Mayor Driscoll, the City Council, together with Representative Keenan and myself, are assisting in what we can do to have that be as seamless as possible. Peabody is looking to build a new middle school, and actually they just received their funding and they should be breaking ground next year. Peabody has the biggest middle school in the state.
Is that right?
That's right. The largest middle school in the state is right here in Peabody. So you know, they're looking to do that, and they're actually going through right now a downtown improvement. Where they're actually narrowing from 4 lanes to 2 lanes for pedestrian safety, and then open up some opportunities for restaurants and retail to come in. Topsfield has a unique issue with Lyme disease. I actually met with a constituent up there just a couple of weeks ago. Many of the residents have Lyme disease, and insurance isn't always best at covering long-term not preventive care, but long-term care for chronic people who have chronic Lyme disease. So I'm helping in that regard to bring more awareness and also get the insurance companies to cover the long-term care for these patients.
Is there like a bigger infestation of ticks in that area, or why is that?
Well, it's a lot of, it's a lot of woodland and a lot
of course,
it's
that
a
makes
farmland,
sense, doesn't it?
right? And that's where, and so that's where deer live.
Sure, of course.
More so than here. Although Beverly has deer, Salem has deer.
I have them in my backyard.
There you go. There you go. So be careful when you're out in your backyard. Make sure those little ticks, you get them off. And Danvers also has, they're working on the issue with the homeless in the motels over there. This has been a big issue that I've been working on to help move the homeless families into permanent housing. I just had a meeting last week in my office about this. And also the transportation costs that are related to that. To bus these children from Danvers to their home communities as far away as Lawrence or south as Brockton, it's very costly. And it's bad public policy to do. Not only is it bad to house families in motels, because they can be there for months and months and months, at $3,000 a month per motel room. That's bad public policy, but it's also not good for families. So the state is working very actively in having motels for emergency use only, 2-3 nights. That's it.
I see. Now, I know one project that is key to Beverly is, of course, the redevelopment of the Rantoul corridor from the Salem Bridge and to where Rantoul meets Cabot, and then over to the Memorial School that you mentioned. Can you tell us a little bit about that? That's
right. So another initiative of Mayor Scanlon that he's been working very hard on and also to identify state dollars, but there's also a lot of private development that's happening on Rantoul Street. In my experience and what we did over in Salem, if you bring people downtown to live, then retail and restaurants and businesses will follow.
Sure.
So I think it's just a recipe for success, and so whatever we can do in my office to help continue that development. But I'm very excited for Beverly and for Rantoul Street.
Now, just to change topics here now, our current governor, Gov Patrick, has 2 more years left in his tenure. He can't run again for governor. And how will this affect Massachusetts lawmakers and the political landscape here in the next couple of years, Joan?
Well, that's interesting. People are already starting to kind of make a little bit of noise about people that will want to be running for governor. For instance, Treasurer Grossman, who has actually been very, very good to me since I've been in the Senate, and to my office, has announced already that he's going to be running. There's a senator, Representative Wolf from the Cape and the Islands, that will be running. He owns Cape Air. And there'll be a number of men and women that will jump in and run. I think it's very important that people at home follow the process, see who will be running, look at what their platform will be, see how you identify with them. I think that we've had so many special elections. We had a presidential. I think people are just electioned out. They just get a little too weary of it. But it's very important because this will guide what we will be doing the next 4 years or beyond in the Commonwealth, and how it also affects the district in particular. We will continue to do business as usual. I will be on the ballot next year for re-election. But we will continue to, meet with constituents and work with leaders on what's necessary for what we can do for our district.
Now, you talked about some of the projects that are on the boards right now, and some of the things that are getting going. What are some of the projects or topics that you think that the legislature might be involved in going forward in the next 2 or 3 years, Joan?
Well, one that we're going to take up pretty soon is minimum wage, and that's a very important issue. Right now, the minimum wage is $8 an hour. I think the federal minimum wage is $7.50 or $7.75. It's just a little bit lower. There's a reasoning out there that if you increase the minimum wage, some people actually are disincentivized. They don't go to work because they can't make.
Because they make more money?
Because they make more money being on public assistance.
Oh, I see.
Right.
Okay.
Not that they make money. Yeah. It's just that they don't have the incentive to go to work, because some people will stay home and be on public assistance. We want to actually change that and incentivize people to go to work. One way to do that is to increase the minimum wage. It's a balance, especially with small businesses. We want to make sure that we've got a balance, but Senator Pacheco, who is from Taunton, actually has a bill in front of the legislature where he's looking to tier it. It was $9 next year, $10 the year after, $11 the year after that, and then index it to inflation. I'm not sure if that's the approach that we should take. We're still taking a look at that. But minimum wage is very important, and we need to be able to keep the minimum wage at least in line with inflation, because $8 really an hour isn't really $8 an hour.
Yeah, yeah. Anything else? Any other things that the
You know, we're just going to one of the things that's coming up right now is the Obamacare.
Mm-hmm.
So as we know, right here in Massachusetts, we have health insurance for every resident. Now that the whole nation is going to have health insurance for every person. However, here in Massachusetts, we have 11 rating factors that we put on to determine who pays what. The federal government's going to have 4 rating factors. So actually, the legislature and the governor sent a request to the president recently for a waiver on that. We want to keep our 11 rating factors. We like them. They work here in our state. Obamacare is patterned after our healthcare system here, after Romney Care, if you will. So we are waiting to see what the federal government says about that. Also, we've also asked for, if we're going to have to go strictly to Obamacare, we need to phase into it. We need to be able to see what the impact is going to be. Small business, large business, to the insured. What's the financial impact going to be?
Yeah, and I know that certainly it depends on who you talk to, what their political persuasion is and what their ideological stance is. Obamacare in some quarters is a very hot potato, as I think our viewers know. Now, if one of our viewers, or if our viewers want to get a hold of you and talk to you, what is the best vehicle? Can you give us a phone number that they can call your office?
Yes, you can call my office at 617-722-1410.
Okay, we have it. I think we have it up there.
Great. You can email my office at joan.lovely@masenate.gov.
Okay, and let's keep that up there, because the masenate.gov, and that's your email.
Right.
Okay, and now you also have hours that you have, office hours, where your constituents can come and see you, and you have office hours in all 5 of the towns. How does that work, Joan?
So we have regularly scheduled office hours in each community. The first Thursday of the evening of the month would be Beverly, and I do it alphabetically: Beverly, Danvers, Peabody, Salem. Topsfield is always on a Friday, and I do it at the library up there during the day, so it's the last Friday of the month. But it's 5:30 to 7 in each city or town hall, and it's consistent. Again, Beverly's the first Thursday, Danvers the second Thursday, etc. down the line. Topsfield being the last Friday, because they're not open in the evening, so I go to their library. Also, but if someone can't come to the district hours, I will meet them. I am a regular at the Atomic Cafe, or Starbucks, or Jaho over in Salem, or Starbucks over in Peabody, Brothers Deli in Danvers. I'm happy to meet anyone, anywhere. I don't want to have someone have to come into Boston to see me, and perhaps they can't be there on that Thursday night. Happy to meet you, for a cup of coffee, wherever you'd like.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Our state senator will be glad to have a cup of joe with you at your favorite cafe.
Right. That's right.
Well, Senator Lovely, Joan, thank you for visiting with us. And we will plan to have these get-togethers on a regular basis, and we'll announce them to our audience, where you can come and kind of brief us on what's happening and the goings-on on Beacon Hill as you continue your new career here and your new job as state senator. And congratulations, and
Thank you, Walt.
And good luck to you.
Thank you.
And for the Beacon Hill Report, this is Walt Kosmowski. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.